Close. Chapter 18 of The Lesson Before Dying by Ernest J. Gaines. So chapter 17 was pretty much about his visit again to death. This is his visit number 2, I think. To death. So it's still pretty disappointed. They talked about death. It doesn't matter, like you're here. Like kind of what the teacher was saying, like extraterritorialism. Like you're here, you live, and you die. So that's pretty much it, chapter 17. Oh, okay, he went to see the sheriff, and the sheriff was like, oh, because they want a table to sit, and so they want to transfer him somewhere else. So we'll see if that happens. Alright, we'll start right now. Okay, and scoot you in here. As he had promised, the sheriff went to Jefferson and asked him if he would like to meet his visitors in the day room instead of his cell. The sheriff explained that he would be shackled hand and feet there. He also told Jefferson that it was entirely up to him and that his wishes would be carried out. If that's what they want, Jefferson said. No, not what they want, what you want. If that's what they want, Jefferson repeated. Is it a yes then? If that's what they want, Jefferson said, I'm going to die anyhow. When Miss Emma and my aunt and Reverend Ambrose went to the courthouse, they were led to the day room by the young Deputy Paul. The large room contained 3 tables made of steel, with benches attached on either side, also of steel. There were no other visitors in the day room, and Miss Emma selected the center table. Paul told them that he would be back in a few minutes. While he was gone, Miss Emma took out the food and placed it on the table. She sat places for 4, 2 on either side of the table. My aunt and Reverend Ambrose stood back, watching her. My aunt would say later that Miss Emma went about setting the table the same way she would have done at home, humming her termination song to herself. This gon' be his place, and this gon' be my place, she said. My aunt said that Miss Emma, still humming to herself, passed her hand over the table to make sure there was no dust, no specks there, just as she would be at home. That's your place there, Lou, and that's your right there, Reverend Ambrose, she said. Don't it look nice? Ain't it much better? My aunt and Reverend Ambrose agreed that it looked nice and that it was much better than the cell. Then they heard the chains, and a moment later the door at the far end of the room opened and Jefferson came in, followed by the deputy. Jefferson had not been chained before, and he took long steps that caused him to trip. My aunt said. He came to the table like somebody half blind, and he didn't sit down until Paul told him to do so. Paul told him that he had to stay in one place until he was returned to his cell. He ain't going to move, Miss Emma said. I'm going to see to that, I thank you kindly. You understand you don't you, Jefferson, Paul said. I hear you, Jefferson said. You ain't going to mind, Miss Emma said. I'm going to see to that. Y'all have a good dinner, Paul said, and left. He come from good stock, Miss Emma said. Y'all sit down. Well, Jefferson, how are you feeling? He did not answer her. He sat with bowed head, his cupped hands down between his knees, under the table. My aunt and Reverend Ambrose sat down. Miss Emma dished up the food, mustard greens with pieces of pork fat mixed in it. There was stewed beef meat, rice, and biscuits. A little cake for dessert, my aunt said. You can go eat for me, Jefferson, Miss Emma asked him. He kept his head bowed, his shackled hands under the table, and he did not answer her. You'll eat if I fed you, she asked. When he did not answer her, she dished up a small piece of meat and some mustard greens on the spoon and held it up to his mouth. He would not open his mouth. Miss Emma looked at my aunt, and my aunt, who had been trying to eat, could see all the hurt in her face. When I came up there a couple of days later, the chief deputy told me I could meet Jefferson in his cell or in the day room. I told him it didn't matter to me where we met. The chief deputy told me it didn't matter to him either, but he told Paul to take me to the day room. I sat at the center table, just as Miss Emma and my aunt and Reverend Ambrose had 2 days before, and I heard the chains along this cell block before I saw anyone. Then they came in, Jefferson in front, shackled, walking with short steps, his head bowed and his shoulders stooped. They came up to the table, and Paul told him to sit down. He sat without looking at me, his shoulders hanging low and closer together than they should be. I'll be back, Paul said. Can we walk? I asked him. He had his exercise, Paul said. I'll have to ask Clark. No, that's all right, I said. Maybe next time. Paul left. How's it going? I said. All right, Jefferson said without raising his head. You want to eat something? I ain't hungry, he said. Yes, you are, I said. I know I am. There was store-bought bread. Fried pork chops, and baked sweet potatoes. I put some of it in front of him and some in front of me. I started eating. Come on, eat something, I said. He raised his head slowly and studied me a while. He had lost some weight. What had been a round, smooth face when he first came here was beginning to show some bone structure. His eyes were still bloodshot. I had seen them many times in my sleep the past month. What do you want? He asked me. I was eating. I shrugged my shoulders. Just want you to eat something, that's all. What you want? He asked again. His expression hadn't changed, and there had no change of inflection in his voice. He his reddened eyes accused me of wanting something without saying it. Us to talk, I said. About what? I don't know, I said. Anything you want to talk about. What do you want to talk about? That chair, he said. He watched me now, because he knew he had caught me off guard. I looked at him a moment when I started eating again. That chair was the last thing I wanted to talk about. We're, we're starting our Christmas program, I said, but I could see that he was thinking about other things. You remember those Christmas programs when you were in school? It's Christmas, he asked, but he was not thinking about Christmas. He was thinking about something else, and he knew that I knew he was thinking about something else. No, Christmas is still a few weeks off, I said, but we're getting ready. That's when he was born, or that's when he died. He asked, Who? I said. He looked at me knowing that I knew who he was talking about. Born, I said. That's right, he said. Easter, when they nailed him to the cross, and he never said a mumbling word. I had not finished eating, but I knew I couldn't eat any more. I put the rest of the pork chops on the slice of light bread on the napkin before me. Jefferson, do you want moral means? Do you know what moral means? I asked him. He looked at me, knowing that I knew what he was thinking about. Obligation, I said. Do you know what obligation means? He didn't answer, but he kept looking at me. No matter how bad off we are, I said, we still owe something. We still owe something, you know. You owe something, Jefferson. You owe something, Jefferson. Nope, not me. Surely not to the sheriff out. You owe something, Jefferson. No, not me. Surely not to that sheriff out there. You owe something, Jefferson. Not to me. Surely not to that sheriff out there. But to your grandmother. You must show her some understanding, some kind of love. That's for humans, he said. I ain't no human. Then why do you speak, Jefferson? I said. Human beings are the only creatures on earth who can talk. Why do you talk? And wear clothes. Why do you wear clothes? You trying to get me wool gathered? He said. I'm not trying to confuse you, Jefferson. She loves you, and I want you to give her something, something that she can be proud of. Hogs don't give nothing. Hogs don't leave nothing, he said. Jefferson, do you like coming out here, or do you prefer staying in the cell? Anything y'all want, he said. Don't matter to me. It matters to her, Jefferson. Out here she can sit down, he grunted. I'm the one gonna have to sit down. You can be kinder to her, Jefferson. Every time she comes up here, she comes back to the corridor looking worse and worse. She ought to stay home, he said. All she'll do is worry more if she didn't see you. Ugh. Hogs don't worry. Hogs just know, he said. Hogs don't know anything, Jefferson, I said. Only human beings know. Only human beings worry. This hog know. Fanning up Christmas. Kill him at Christmas time, he said. Nobody's going to die at Christmas, I said. How do you know? They told you. This hog know. Fanning up for Christmas. Kill him at Christmas time, he said. Nobody's going to die at Christmas, I said. How'd you know they told you? They told you? Nobody told me anything, I said. I just know. Nothing is going to happen at Christmas. I'd be glad when it is over, he said. Old Hogs get him some rest then. Do you want me to leave, Jefferson? Leave when you want. Old Hog don't care. He lowered his head. The chains jangled under the table. I want to leave, but it was too early. The sheriff would have had his proof that I hadn't reached Jefferson, that I was giving up. They found a pine tree this year, I said. A nice little pine tree. His head was bowed. He didn't answer. His hair had begun to grow back, but you could still see the big bones on his skull. A half hour later, Paul came in to return him to the cell. Jefferson walked in short steps, his head bowed, his arms hanging low, his shoulders too close together. After locking him in, Paul came back to the day room, and he and I walked down to the main floor together. What do you think? He asked. I don't know, but that's what she wants. Paul nodded. He understood. He had come from good stock. I went back uptown to the Rainbow and had a couple of beers. When I figured Vivian would be out of class, I drove over to the school. One of the teachers was directing the children onto the bus, and Vivian and another teacher stood by the flagpole, talking. Vivian saw me and came over and she got into the car. Hi, she said and kissed me. A drink or a sandwich, I said. A drink's not bad, not too bad, she said. I pulled away from behind the bus where the teacher was still commanding the children, and we went back to the Rainbow. The place was quiet and dark, and we sat at the table far over in the corner. The teacher who were already there knew that we wanted to be alone. The waitress hadn't come in yet, so Claiborne brought us our drinks. After he left, Vivian looked across the table at me. I don't think we ought to go to Baton Rouge tonight, I said. Vivian drank and set her glass back down and looked at me, waiting for me to go on. We had talked about going to Baton Rouge that night, but she knew I had seen him today, and we had been noticing that after my visits with him, things did not always go well for us in bed. How's that program going? I asked her. All right, she said, waiting. Mine's about the same, I said. The children found a nice little pine tree this year. Before it was oak or anything else they could find, but this year a little pine tree not very tall, but nice and round. Vivian nodded. She was looking at me closely. I love you more and more, I said. If you just say the word, God knows I'll drop everything. And hate each other for the rest of our lives, Grant? No, she said. I can never hate you, ever. You could and you would, she said. No, I said. Yes, Grant. Yes, Grant. You would hate me for letting you make this decision, or I would hate you for doing it. I'm not doing any good up there, Vivian, I said. Nothing is changing. Something is, she said. Something is, she said. Whoa, I did ends. So according to Vivian, something is changing. So I'll put that. Something is changing. Vivian said that to him. Page 141. So chapter 8 was about visit number 3, I think. Visit number 3 to Jeff. They are in they are in the day room. Jeff still calls himself Hog. So that's pretty much it. Hmm. So Baton Rouge is like their love thing. Baton Rouge. That equals like sex or something. Sex, love, night. Um. So, so before he went, before Grant went, before Grant went, three of them went too to see Jeff. So that was pretty much it. Yeah, that was chapter 18. Nothing much going on. Nothing really that stood out for me. Um, so it's like, oh, thinking about Christmas. Yeah, Christmas is in the air now. Christmas equals death for, oh yeah, for Jeff. Fanning up, fattening up the hog. It's a terrible name, hog. Who wants to be called a hog? Um, Jeff talks about Jesus, but he doesn't say Jesus. How he died. How he died without saying anything. Alright, so that was it, chapter 18. Goodbye.